things that people wouldn't think of.
We're recording, sir. Hold that thought. Hello, and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I am your host, Trey Shields, a.k.a. the mediocre producer, along with my quote-unquote mentor, the Zen master of commercial insurance, Micah Salas. Micah, how are you today?
Feeling very zen. Happy.
Z-E-N or Z-Y-N?
I don't do ZYN. That's gonna be like, that's gonna come out in like 6 years. Like ZYN causes extreme cancer in your mouth or something. I don't know.
No, I have no doubt. I've done my fair share and definitely has absolutely crushed my anxiety. In the process of quitting as we speak for like the 97th time. But anyways, moving on, enough with my personal problems. Let's talk about this episode. In this episode, I got a message from a really young and new producer, kind of like what to expect, what's he getting into. And I'm going to read his message and then just wanted you to riff on it. But before we do that, let's talk about the world's greatest, and maybe only Xdate data supplier. I don't even know what you call it. InsuranceXdate.com, the title sponsor of this podcast. Shout out to Rob and the boys over there. Mike and I use it every day, and it is kind of like a CRM, kind of like a Zoom Info, where it's like a data aggregator. It's basically just a platform you go on, whatever state you're in, and you put in your SIC code or industry or whatever you want to chase, and then it just scrapes data from NCCI or wherever, and you get a bunch of Xdates. And bada bing, bada boom, you've got names, contacts, and you're off to the running. Now, one caveat: it is not full out in every state. From what I can see, it's primarily like NCCI states, but I know they have AI working on that. For instance, they just opened up Louisiana a couple of months ago, which is what I use. So anyways, worth delving into. Highly recommend, and not just because they sponsor this podcast. We've been using them for years. So, go ahead.
I'm going to make a proposal to the owners of Insurance X. They should change their slogan to X gonna give it to you.
That'd
be awesome. That'd be such a good one. Short, sweet, it's memorable.
X gonna give it to you. Well done, sir.
All right. Anyways, go ahead.
All right. So I don't have a title worked up in my brain yet, but basically it's going to be what to expect as a new producer. So, first year through third year, maybe even 4 or 5 years, like what am I getting into? Okay. And so it's kind of based off of this message that I got. I'm going to read this for you here real quick. Sorry, I was not better prepared. Boom, boom, boom. All right, here we go. I will leave out the names and the details to protect the innocent. But I'm 22 and brand new to the biz. I have a background in athletics and just began my career as a commercial insurance producer in May. The past 2 months have been licensing, onboarding, and drinking from the proverbial fire hose. One quick question. How long did it take before things started to really click and you felt like you knew what you were doing? Right now, I'm hitting around 60 calls a day, mixing in emails between dials, and doing my best to get out in the community and make connections. What are your thoughts? So anyways, shout out to my boy D. D, appreciate that. And I basically just responded to him. Number one, if you keep hitting 60 calls a day, you will trip over deals and they will fall out of trees. And then I said on my part that kind of like 3 or 4 years, kind of year 4 for me, I'm a bit of a late bloomer and hardhead. And to be honest with you, I'm 6.5 years in, maybe 7. I don't know exactly. And man, I still feel like I'm lost half the time. So I'm not saying that's the case for everybody. That's just my experience. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I know I kind of gave you that topic, and I know you wrote down some things. So what are your thoughts? What to expect when you're starting out as a noob?
Well, I would say to D also there, what I've seen speed up people's comfort level is working deals, right? So keep doing the 60 calls a day. Like, just the more opportunities that you can work on, the better. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So I've seen guys like really get comfortable and really seem to kind of step into their own, I guess you could say, where they just kind of feel like, okay, I got this. I can go work deals myself. I kind of know the processes on the back end. I know what to say to clients, prospects. I mean, I've seen people, 18 months, 2 years kind of get to that point if they're working a bunch of deals right away. But if you could still be successful from a revenue standpoint, but if you only work a couple of deals on paper, you could still even look solid, but still not feel confidence till year 3 or 4, right? I mean, if you just close 2-3 deals a year, yeah, you're going to be learning, but not as much as the guy who I think is probably working 10 or 12. So, that's the way to speed it up. But man, okay. So a couple thoughts I have around what to expect when you start. And these are, I try to think of things that weren't obvious, like, it's going to be hard. People are going to say no all the time. So here's a couple. One, you're going to go through a dopamine withdrawal. Because if you're coming from a sales industry where you're selling stuff on a weekly or monthly basis, and you're going to mid-market commercial insurance where it's, we're not talking little bops or personal auto policies, you might go through valleys where you go 5 months without a sale, but you can still be very successful. So if you're, and this kind of ties into why I think it's so important to celebrate small victories. Like we talk about keeping even just the tally sheet and the follow-up later list and all that kind of stuff, because it sounds cheesy, but that keeps you going, right? That's like for your sanity. I can't really explain it. It just worked for me, but I still go through months where I don't sell stuff sometimes. And then all of a sudden you have a 30-day stretch where you sell 3 or 4 deals. So it's just the way it is. So that's one thing I would say. Let's see. Okay, here's another thing. This might seem obvious, but once you get out there talking to people, it might really hit you sometimes. Okay, 100% of people you talk to have an agent. 90% of people are actually content with their agent, or they'll tell you they are. And then the other 10% will tell you they don't have time to talk about insurance. It's not a big enough deal. So the whole point of saying that is, like, basically it's really tough to get people, like, people just aren't excited to talk about insurance. Most business owners. This is more true if you're in a market that's softer or a state where rates have been kind of steady. Now, if you're in a rate where things have been climbing, yeah, there's some more pain and people are like, yeah, this line item has grown. But even then, it's still going to be a ton of people that just don't want to talk about insurance. And so basically your biggest competition isn't necessarily the agent across the street or whatever, it's complacency. And that's what you have to learn how to overcome and get good at. I always kind of say this, extending conversations, right? So it's like, it could be on a cold call, it could be after a first meeting. We're like, yeah, this looks good, but we're pretty content. Like, so then how do you keep the conversation going? How do you stay in touch? You got to play the long game. So that was just another thing that I kind of had thought about. Okay, another thing is learning coverage is fairly easy relative to opening doors. So
that's going to ruffle feathers.
Yeah. Now, here's what I have to say on learning coverage: the basics, right? Just enough to, because this is the big thing. We think we have to know it all, and you had a good post on that this week. But you think you got to know everything, but these buyers don't know. There's a lot they don't know, right? And they just, a lot of them, honestly, even, I'm not saying they should do this, but they have trust that whenever they pick an agent, that they're covered how they should be, right? And so you don't need to necessarily be a coverage expert, but you got to be able to talk about it at least somewhat intelligently, right, in front of a buyer. But it's, I think, honestly, the most difficult part of coverage isn't necessarily like just the basics of like, hey, what policy should you buy and all that, and even reading exclusions. It's pretty easy. Where I think it gets actually challenging is when you have claim scenarios pop up and like, what's really a trigger for a claim? You know, if this type of thing happens, is that really covered? Because this says it's excluded here, or maybe it's covered, but then the trigger is not, you know. And so that's where it can start to get like, you could be doing this for 30 years and it can get pretty confusing, right? And you got to go reread the policy forms and all that stuff. So when I say learning coverage is easy, I just mean just the basics, right? And so I think I think if you honestly spent a month going through like the core policies of what a business, you know, what policies are out there, what they cover, you can know enough to be dangerous. And also with ChatGPT and stuff like that, you can just literally look up things. Hey, client asked about this. Is this covered typically? And that's probably a pretty good starting point. But I said the second half of that is opening doors is so relative to opening doors, right? Opening doors is not that easy. This is why insurance producers are paid big bucks. This is also why a lot of people fail, because a lot of people just can't open doors, or they don't stick with it long enough to do that. So yeah, to all you coverage nerds out there, no, I'm not saying like knowing every single little thing about a coverage and a policy is easy, but anyways. Okay. Two more to add. Now this one's kind of contrary to the point I just made, but I'm still going to say it because getting quote opportunities is easy. Getting real opportunities is hard. And so I think if you open up, if you could just go call people like, hey, I want to quote your insurance. I bet you'd probably get more meetings than the people who just open up and say, hey, I want to have a conversation. Can I come in and talk with you? Can I share with you how we're helping people buy insurance more effectively, show you a different way to buy insurance, whatever you want to say, a more consultative approach. You're going to have a lot less, I think, open doors initially than if you just go and say, hey, I'd love to quote your insurance. We got a super competitive product. Can we come on out and talk with you? I think you'll probably get more meetings if you take that approach, because that's what people are used to. I haven't tried that approach, so I don't really know. But I know people out there that do that approach and do well with it, I guess. Again, it takes some patience and kind of some resolve to stick to not kind of going on that path of just be like, hey, I just want to quote your insurance, right? Again, nothing wrong with quoting. I'm just saying if that's how you open it, that's all you want to do. That's a lot easier to open doors that way, I would say. And I'll let you kind of share your thoughts on that in a second. My last thing that no one tells you is you might cry. Or at least feel like it on a weekly or daily basis. Yeah, funny story. I had worked at a prior company with this kind of alpha male, tough guy, right? And he was a couple years older than me. He'd been out in the field before I was, and before I actually went out in the field, I spent a day with him, right? Just to kind of shadow. And he literally told me, he was like, dude, I hit like a 9-month. I hadn't sold anything in my first 8 months. And literally, I proposed a deal. Then the guy said no. I went on my car and like literally bawled, like cried, because he had won everything in his life, sports, all that stuff, whatever he wanted, he got, right? And then he started selling insurance and no one cared. And now the funny thing is he's extremely high up at that company now. He crushed it, hit all the top trips. So he did very well. And that for him, back to Dee's question, is how long does it take to get comfortable? He kind of hit his stride is what from a couple deals and stuff around 10 months to a year, right? So it's just going to vary for everybody. But yeah, I think those are some things that people would say, or that people won't tell you probably, if you're going to get into insurance, and that you'll have to experience and go through.
Got it. So you came in a little bit different. You came in through Federated, so you'd already had a little bit of a different path. So I'm just going to share with you a few things I wrote down as you were talking. This is my experience, right?
Yep.
Everybody talks about what is it? Speak your truth.
Oh, speak your truth. Yeah.
Oh, geez, that's a load of shit. Anyways, okay, here's my truth, brother. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard as shit. I had been successful in everything I'd ever done. Always was like President's Club, this, that, and the other. And for a myriad of reasons, I really struggled. I didn't really start to figure it out until year 4 at my old agency. And then by the time that rolled around, I had the opportunity to jump ship here. So then I had to kind of like start completely all over. And I'm in year 3 in my new agency. And I mean, you and I talk regularly. I'm doing fine, but I'm not setting the world on fire like I thought I would be doing, quote unquote, in year 7.
Yep.
For me, it's been a long, slow process. I think a lot of it is my own fault. And there's definitely been things out of my control, but it's just been a very humbling experience for me because I've always done well at everything I've ever done. And like the only thing in life, well, that's not true, but like the only real big venture in life that I've just really struggled at over and over and over and over is this producer thing. I just haven't. I've told you this. Like I find every way there is to lose, and like I'll call you and say, "Hey, I got another one for you."
Yep.
So, anyways, it's hard as shit. Which then leads me into kind of the second thing, which is most producers are full of shit, and what you see either on their LinkedIn or what they're sharing in sales meetings or in the office is just a load of bull. Everybody has these fragile little egos and they have this status that they have to uphold. And what you're going to hear is just not true for most, at least in my experience. Once you actually get behind the scenes and you peel a couple of layers back, you're going to look and see that they lose a lot more deals than they share. A lot of these guys are getting seeded business that they don't talk about. Or at least when they first started, the first few hundred were kind of seeded to them. And then now that was like what got them over the hill. And then now that their book is working for itself, but you're not going to hear that. They might be in there running the sales meeting and telling you how to do it, but they didn't actually go from 0 to say 300 by themselves. They were brought in by Uncle Rick or, their dad or, the other 3 guys that they came in with all got fired, and so those accounts got moved to them. You know what I mean? So it's like you're not always getting the full story. That's my experience. Maybe that's a little bit jaded, but it's my experience, brother. And then number 3 is, at least for me, insurance is going to seem like Chinese for like the first 3 years. You came from Federated. But so I don't know what your experience was like when you first got into Federated, but when I started, I didn't know the difference between premium and deductible, and coverage forms and carriers and how things worked. It was just totally foreign to me, and I think that plays a part in why so many producers fail, is because we're asking them to do so many things when they first come in, especially like D, the 22-year-old. He's probably never sold anything in his life. So he has no idea how to develop a pipeline, how to find leads, how to like do the whole sales and prospecting part. Then we're asking him to learn insurance. So especially if they're telling him just to be a generalist, like go out and find whatever you can find and bring it back. Now he's got to learn whatever he takes that brings back in. He's got to learn that. He's got to learn the coverages, all those things. On top of that, he's got to learn the back end distribution side. Who are the markets for that? Who are the carriers? Who are the MGAs? Where do I need to go? How does this all work? How the hell do I fill out a SUP? How do I fill out an Accord? I mean, what is a property schedule? What does this mean? When was the last time wiring was updated? I don't know. Do I have to ask them that? Do I send them an app? Well, how do I do? There's just all this minutia that comes with insurance. And I think it's no wonder that, a lot of us fail. And I kind of throw my hat in the ring on that too. Like the only reason I'm still here is frankly because of Micah. So for those of you out there struggling, I totally relate, man. Been there, done that. So I guess for me, like what to expect in your first 3 years, it's going to be hard as hell. It's going to take you a while to figure out the coverage stuff if you don't come from the industry. If you don't know how to sell, that's a whole nother thing that's going to be hard that you're going to have to learn, i.e. go check out the producer playbook. That's the part we'd help you out with. And then number 4, most of the guys around you, if you're at a big national firm or at least, more than a few guys, I would take whatever they say with a grain of sand, unless you know for a fact that they built it from the ground up and other people in your office validate that they built it from the ground up, I wouldn't really pay a lot of attention to them from a prospecting standpoint because most of it's full of shit. So that's what I got.
There you go.
Zinger? Were those zingers coming in hot from left field?
Yeah, no, I mean, you want to be careful not to just discount. The only thing I would say is discount like what an older guy is telling you. Let's just say, just because he was seeded some business, right? Like, I think you just want to be careful of that. Just because I think, in my experience, unless you're like truly in a situation where daddy is the agency and he passes everything on to you, or he's phasing out and gives you like all the warm leads or whatever, you still probably can't validate through being seeded purely through seeding, right? Like you're going to have to eventually sell something. Otherwise you're going to get fired, I would think. Maybe I'm wrong. But don't get me wrong, it certainly helps to be seeded deals, right? Like that's not what I'm arguing. I'm just saying that, what I would take more from that is like, don't compare yourself to others from a standpoint of like, this guy, man, this principal that's telling me he's got a $2 million book, and he did it in 10 years or whatever. Well, you don't know, like half of that could have been seeded, right? Because at bigger agencies that does happen. That is one of the perks of working at a big agency, is if you kind of play the game and you show some promise and you're in the sales meetings, they like you, you have that likability factor, whatever, all that stuff going for you, you will get seeded business, right? So that's when you're actually side note, if you're looking to join an agency, that is one of the perks of a bigger agency, is that will happen. They don't have perpetuation plans a lot of times, and so that's a perk. But
let me qualify what I said. This is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah.
I kind of said it. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying don't listen to them. I'm just saying there's always a story behind the story.
Yeah.
You're not always getting the full story most of the time. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no. And I think that's fair. In perfect story around that is two newer agents that I know right now, same company, same agency, different territories, halfway across the country, both agents, like I said, same agency, pretty much same experience and background. They're both in their first couple of months. One guy's, $60K in revenue doing really well. The other guy's at zero, right? And I'm chatting with the other guy who's at zero, and he knows this. They all know this. So no one's trying to put up a facade or anything, but I'm just saying, for all you guys listening, it's helpful to keep this in mind. The guy who's put up 60 already, he went to an old territory that he had sold in several years ago, had no non-compete, so was able to scoop up some old clients. Again, that's still a skill set. I would do the same thing, right? So again, this isn't throwing stones at anyone. So that's kind of how he's picked up most of his deals, right? Had some old relationships. He also has some old colleagues, I think, that he has a referral network built in. I think that's got him one or two deals. So, talking with this guy who's at zero, essentially just 2 months in, which isn't nothing to be ashamed of. That's case in point why you got to be careful about comparing yourself to others, right? So it's just, there's always, like you said, there's always a backstory.
No, I'm not saying that this guy would do it because I don't know who you're talking about. But let's say you're at like a sales summit or you're at like, whatever. This dude is not going to take the phone and be like, guys, honestly, it's not really impressive. I've just kind of already sold there. And so I just already had some M's. I just moved some old clients over. I didn't have a non-compete. That is not what most people are going to say. Now, no shame on that guy. I'm just saying it's like, I did this and, it's just really all about blah, blah, blah. And, I just like to thank my sir. It's like, you almost always not going to get the full truth.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with that. And I think, so that's where the whole comparison thing is. And then you sit and we've all been in like the sales pipeline meetings. You sit there and you start to think like, if you're the last to go, you're like, holy, like you were prepared to be honest. You go with your list of like 2 that are maybe hanging by a thread, right? You're like hoping. all of a sudden, like the 4 or 5 guys ahead of you just like rattle off like 10 accounts and like all these monster deals, and all of a sudden you're like, what the hell? So then all of a sudden you're sitting there scrambling. I gotta add to my list real quick. And then after the meeting, you go talk with the guy. You're like, yo, Chris, dude, like, man, I didn't realize you got such a strong pipeline. Like, well, I mean, yeah, I talked to this guy like 4 months ago, and I think he'll come through. And this guy, and it's like, oh, okay. So, and then you look at year end, and he never closed, a tenth of what he put in there.
Yeah.
So,
you remember the calling days we used to do at the old shop?
Oh, dude, those were such a crock.
It was such a sandbag. I remember, like, I'm sitting there literally in my cube, just like getting after it, and I might like make 50 to 100 calls and set like 2 or 3 meetings, and I'm like, yes. And then I look on the scoreboard, and some dude
15 meetings,
8 meetings. I'm like, that. I remember just thinking, like, what am I doing wrong, man? And then the more you do it, you're like, these sandbagging SOBs, like, this is the biggest load of shit I've ever seen.
That's so funny because we worked at the same company, so I laughed because I took it serious, right? I actually did it ethically, I guess you could say. And it's I'd go in there. I remember the first one I ever did, and the first, like you said, man, I think I made 90 calls in like 3 hours, and I had I think I had 1 meeting, and then that was it. And like all of a sudden, I start seeing these numbers, like so and so's got 5 meetings, 6. I was like, and there was someone with like 9 to 12 meetings. I'm like, what the like WTF, dude? Like this, and I was starting to feel very like not insecure, but just like, dude, I must suck, man, because I was moved across the country right from Federated, and I'm like, I've only been at this company for 6-7 months, or at the time we did our first one. I'm like, what am I doing wrong, man? Like and come to find out afterwards, you start talking to the people, and they're sandbagging, and they're counting like a quick conversation with someone as like a meeting or something, or a COI as a meeting. Oh yeah, I called this guy who's a banker, So. And
he's going to hook me up with 3 people, so that's 3 meetings. No, I'm with you. It's I'm call me jaded. I'm just saying, be a little skeptical.
Dude, since we're on this topic, I'll come completely clean on my time at Marsh's. I was seated business my first year. Yep.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I feel like that changes a lot of things.
Yeah, it probably. Well, here's the thing. I still produced.
I don't even know you anymore.
Yeah, no, I still produced over the 7 years there about, over about $1 million, whatever. But I was seated some business. A lady left, and I got lucky. The guy liked me, the CEO. I was just there for a couple months, and it was a bunch of crappy accounts that a lot of them left. Basically, the good ones left immediately, and I was stuck with like a bunch of but it was still, and I didn't get any referrals from them. So like that's the one misconception is you think, oh, I'll get all these referrals, I'll go in there and work them. That still takes time. So that never happened. I still don't get referrals today, so maybe that's just a me problem. But it took a lot of, so this is the funny part of the story, is it took a lot of that stress from that first year. I put it on myself naturally anyways, right? But it took some of that, like, okay, and then the second year I did great, crushed it anyways, like from my own production. Year 1 I still did okay, still threw up over 100 if I counted my cross sell. But it's like, so actually that was when so starting over when I left after 7 years, it was like a thing to myself, like, hey man, you start to have those like little voices in your head, like, well, when I was at Marsh, you're at the big shop, you had this, you had some seated business, like, and you start to doubt yourself. And so part of it was like, no, man, I can do that. If I did it once, I could still do it again. So, now it's been fine here. I've been here 4 years, but I'm not getting anything here. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
If you want to guarantee you never get seated business, go to an agency that you're the only agent that works in that state, and you will never get seated, and you will never get a cross sell.
Or like an 8-state radius.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that Marsh, I never got any cross sells. I was never brought in. I was never the beneficiary of any cross sells, and I cross sold probably a couple $100,000 of revenue to EB guys. So that was always a big gripe. Like us PNC guys were like, we're cross selling all this stuff, and never got the favor returned.
All right, I'm gonna fire some shots here, and this is probably gonna go over like a turd in a punch bowl. But I would like to hear, if you're listening and you're at a larger shop or you're at a shop that has both sides of the house and you guys cross sell, is this a fair assessment that PNC are usually the people who are cross selling to EH&B, and EH&B just mooches off PNC, or am I wrong? Because that's my experience. My experience is that EH&B just sit back. They literally are selling the PNC guys.
Yep.
Like we used to, like when my old firm joined, your old firm.
Yeah.
The guys would fly in from Texas 2 hours to like, oh, take us out to lunch, and man, take us to the Saints game, and it's like they wanted cross sales.
They're smart, dude.
So that is a gift in itself. So I'm not hating on that. I just want to see if I'm the only person who's experienced that. I don't know. Maybe at your office, maybe the EH&B guys are the cold outbound killers, and the PNC guys are sitting there mooching off it. But that's not my experience. I did have. So I'm just going to circle back to what to expect in your first 3 years. Can you recap yours real quick?
Oh yeah. Okay. Dopamine withdrawals. You're going to go through a lot of those. It is no one has time or wants to talk about insurance, basically. Learning coverage is easy relative to opening doors with legit opportunities. Getting quotes is really easy, but getting real opportunities is challenging. And then you will probably cry or feel like it.
And the 3 I wrote down is it's going to be hard as shit, probably harder than anything you've ever done. Insurance is technical stuff's going to seem like Chinese for a long time, and that's okay. And then a lot of your colleagues are full of it, and there's always a story behind the story that you're probably not going to know about. May not know about ever, or until you get behind the scenes and you get the skinny on what actually happened 3 years ago or whatever. But anyways, so do you have anything else you want to add to that? Anything else you can expect? I'm a little cautious to go into like what to expect revenue wise, because everybody's across the board. You got guys at small that do personal lines and a little commercial. You got guys that are at like mid-market shops, and you got guys that are like Aon or whatever, like the big national firms. So like I'm cautious to go into like what to expect revenue wise. All I can tell you, I'll tell you my experience. For me, I would say I average between 4 and 10 clients per year.
Mm-hmm.
That range between 5 in revenue to, I think the biggest client I have is 70 in revenue. So, but then we know guys that write, 2 or 3 a month. And then there's guys that write, 2 or 3 a year. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you on the revenue standpoint. It's really difficult to put a number on that, though. I would say one thing is don't let Trey and I talking here scare you so much that you just either set the bar really low or kind of like, man, I should get out of this. It's too difficult for me, obviously. So I don't want you quitting. But also don't think small because we're saying it's so difficult. Because there's guys that I know who crush it, right? They come out the gates and they just have the charisma. They got the processes down. They pick up the stuff quick. They're whatever. And so don't think small just because we say it's really, really hard. You can still have a hell of a first year. Might be a little bit of luck in there, might not. Who knows? But yeah, don't let us kind of limit your thinking.
I think at least this is my experience. For me, my rate limiter has always been me. I think for me, production is more about personal development than anything else. It just shines a light on all of my defects. So whether that's like time management or organization or like whatever,
focus or whatever.
Yeah, it's more like I don't want to. It's hard, but it's not like that. It's not that hard. The hard part is like conquering yourself.
Dude, you know what they say?
If you're truly doing it by yourself, and with cold outbound, and you don't have some crazy built-in network, then at least in my experience, it's more about like, can I conquer my demons? Can I become the best version? Manage my time, eat the shit when I don't feel like it, make the calls when I don't feel like it. It's, for me, that's been my experience. And so this whole 7 years in the industry, it's just been one big, massive personal development journey that I'm still trying to, like, I'm maybe at a C+ right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a chipping off the rough edges for me.
Yeah.
But the job itself, I don't think is that insane. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's not that hard. You just have to conquer yourself. If you're a disciplined person and you can eat the frog every morning and you can protect your time and you can like find the right mentors, you probably gonna have a hell of a lot easier time than I'd had.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me when you say that of anyone who has kids can relate to this, but your child is your greatest teacher. I don't know who had that quote, but I find it true with the part that's triggering to you about your kid, you know, when they're doing pesky things or just whatever. It's like, okay, this is what I got to work on. I'm not patient, or, you know, I'm irritable or whatever. But also one other thing that you had mentioned is like, hey, this 7-year journey for you has been about just kind of a more personal development than anything. But if you think about it, life would be pretty boring if everything you did was everything you touched turned to gold. I mean, I think I've used this kind of analogy before, but you'd think it'd be pretty awesome if every putt you went in, every putt you putted went in the hole, every basketball shot you shot went in the hoop. That would be awesome at first, but I'm talking like if every shot, no matter where you were, just throw, and they all would go in, or every putt would always go in. It'd be cool at first, and then you just start to be like, dude, this is boring as hell. Like, it's not even challenging. Eyes closed, hitting putts, they're going in. It would start to become like, now it seems silly, but it kind of puts things in perspective to it. And I think it helps, when I think about it, at least it helps me appreciate challenging, challenges in life, and difficult professions, like what we all do. Not that sales is extremely hard, but just mentally the side of it, so just some food for thought there to add.
Nice. All right. I say we put a bow on this thing.
Yep. I agree.
Here's our big pitch. We have this product called the Producer Playbook, and in it is basically everything that Micah has passed along and taught me throughout our couple of years working together, and we just put it in a 5-6 module video course, and it can be yours for the whopping price of $195. Now, if you're listening to this in the future, who knows? We're definitely going to probably increase the price in the future. But for now, on 7/11/2025, it's $195. So if you have any interest, go check it out, especially if you're a noob in your first 3 years and you just need, like, dude, just give me a paint by numbers. Like, tell me what to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. That's the Producer Playbook. It's literally what I beat out of Micah. So anyways, also every week we put out Max Revenue Letter, which is just a free newsletter. We pick a topic or something to write about. It's usually whatever this podcast is about, and we send that to you. And there's usually some Easter eggs or cool stuff buried in there. So that might be worth a look as well. The link to all that is in the show notes. And then, as always, go check out insurancexdate.com. Big shout out to Rob and the boys over there. We really appreciate everything that you do for us, and absolutely love the product. So with that, we bid you adieu. We appreciate you listening, and we will catch you next week.
Adios.
Adios, everybody.